So I want to show you all how hard it is to write. There are no good writers, there are only good editors. If we look at this paragraph that begins, unlike when the Wicked Witch dies, Dorothy does own up to being a bad girl in the film's opening vignette. Arguing for Miss Gulch to spare Toto his life, Dorothy shifts the blame from Miss Gulch's destroyed garden from Toto to herself, claiming that, quote, Toto didn't mean to do it, he didn't know he was doing anything wrong, I'm the one that ought to be punished. I let him go in Miss Gulch's garden. You can send me to bed without supper. Far more telling of Dorothy's malicious character than this admission of guilt is the vitriol she next exudes. So I don't like this sentence right here. For one reason, it seems to be just too clunky of a change from this scene that I've set up to the next scene. I just say far more telling of Dorothy's malicious character than this admission of guilt is the vitriol she next exudes. Let me explain why I feel like this isn't good flow from the last piece of writing. This admission of guilt is the connection back to the previous writing. The word this, of course, is kind of like a pronoun. I mean, it is. It's a demonstrative pronoun. And it refers back to this story I just got done telling. But because this pronoun is buried in the middle of this sentence, it loses its power to be able to connect back to what I had just written. So I want to get the connector up at the beginning of the sentence, not buried in the middle of the sentence. Now, unfortunately, it's not going to be just enough to say this admission of guilt. I could move it up, right? Capitalize it. This admission of guilt, far more telling of Dorothy than the no. What was it originally? It was this. Far more telling of Dorothy's malicious character than is the vitriol she exudes, than this admission of guilt. It doesn't work. Just making that quick fix isn't going to be the answer. And that's kind of the bummer for you guys to hear because, of course, wouldn't it be nice if you could just move that up and presto changeo, it all works fine. So I have to now reconceptualize what it is that I'm trying to say here. I have to actually come up with like a new kind of transition. And I think that transition would be something like a suggestion of development, like what was this scene about and how is it going to compare to the next scene? Now I've already kind of explained how it's developing. This next scene, it has more vitriol. Of course, vitriol is like violence, right? And she exudes it. So it's like violence is oozing out of her. So let's look at this next moment just so we can see how it compares to the previous one. It takes her but a second to go from repentance to rage. Aha, well that might help me also. Notice that I've called this previous moment a moment of repentance. And the one I'm about to describe is going to be a moment of rage. It takes her but a second to go from repentance to rage as Miss Gulch prepares to take Toto away. Dorothy yells. You can see how that connects to rage. I won't let you take him. You go away. Oh, I'll bite you myself, you wicked old witch. So clearly biting you myself is a much more violent expression of being a bad girl than just, oh, you can send me to bed without supper because I was a bad girl. One is, like I said, an act of repentance, like I deserve to be punished because I was a bad girl. The other one is not repentant at all, right? She's like, bring it on, I want to bite you. So, and then I continue to explain that such a burst of raw emotion, I'll bite you myself, reveals that Dorothy, given the right external pressures, is capable of violent outbursts. Okay, so I prove what it is that I want to highlight about this quote. So now that we understand where I want to get to and where I was, I want to say something up here then, not just this admission of guilt, right? But something more like this, and here's where it's going to get hard and painful. Toto didn't mean to. He didn't know he was doing anything wrong. I'm the one that ought to be punished. I let him go into Mrs. Gulch's garden. You can send me to bed without supper. What appears to be, no, appears isn't quite right. I guess the core idea that I want to carry through is bad girl and bad girl. I'll bite you myself. So I need to like pivot on the idea of bad. Although Dorothy recognizes her badness, yuck, I hate that word, but we'll keep it for now. Although Dorothy recognizes her badness here, it is compensated for. I also don't like that word very much. With, although Dorothy recognizes her badness here, it is compensated for with, compensated for by, that's also kind of crappy. It is compensated for by her immediate repentance. I don't know. Repentance. Although Dorothy recognizes her badness here, it is compensated for. No. This is it. I want to say something like that this still appears to be a moment of goodness, right? The interplay between goodness and badness is what's key to this moment. Like, I know I'm bad, but I'm such a good girl to punish myself, right? I know I've done something wrong, but so it's like her goodness outweighs her badness here. Aha. So I could say something like, at this moment, Dorothy's goodness outweighs her badness. At this moment, although Dorothy confesses to her badness, this confession, this evil, that's a little bit too strong. This evil is washed clean by her willingness to punish herself. Something like that, right? Dorothy. At this moment, I don't like at this moment. Ugh, that sounds bad too. Garden from Toto's claiming that Toto didn't mean to. He didn't know he was doing anything wrong. I'm the one that ought to be punished. I let him go into Miss Gulch's garden. You can send me to bed without supper. So screw this. We know it's at this moment. What else would I be talking about? Although Dorothy confesses to her badness. Okay. Although Dorothy confesses to wrongdoing? No, but we're trying to capture the idea of badness. She's an evil, rotten. That's what we want to get to, right? Although Dorothy confesses to her badness, to being bad, being capable of misbehaving. Misbehaving's too gentle. Badness is really the word I think I want, although it's icky. Confesses to being bad. But see, bad is like a momentary thing. See, bad just means like, oh, I was bad like for a moment. Badness kind of suggests like a personality trait, like a never-ending quality. Although Dorothy confesses to her badness, it, being the badness, is washed, not wasked, is washed clean, is immediately washed clean by her willingness, by her self-imposed punishment. I might like that. Although Dorothy confesses to her badness. So you see now how this immediately ties back to what I was last talking about. It's right there connecting to the previous story. Although Dorothy confesses to her badness, it is immediately washed clean by her self-imposed punishment. Okay, I think that accurately represents what happened in the last instance. Then I need some kind of like but or yet or next or so. But this admission of guilt far more tellingly. But this facade of see, I'm still this is not right. I still want to get that idea of goodness in there. It is immediately washed clean by her goodness as represented by her ability to self-impose a punishment on herself. Ugh. Although Dorothy confesses to her badness, it is immediately washed clean by her goodness. Although Dorothy confesses to her badness, it is immediately washed clean by the by a more noble act of self-punishment. See, I mean, I like a more noble act. That's nice, but I'm losing the idea of like I really want that like clunky, blunt, more noble. It doesn't like more noble. What's wrong with more noble? Nobler. Ugh, nobler. Really, truly, by a nobler act. Ooh, I like more noble better. Although Dorothy confesses to her bad, I really want that clunkiness of like badness and goodness, like or like bad and good, like that really kind of black and white dichotomy that would make it immediately clear to the reader that I'm trying to make that transition. Although Dorothy confesses to her badness, it is immediately washed clean by a gooder act. Okay, no. By a act of goodness? By a nobler good act? Oh, this is a pain. Although Dorothy confesses to her badness, it is immediately washed clean by although Dorothy confesses to her badness. Although Dorothy confesses to her badness. Okay, I mean, I could also say, granted, we again see. Oh, wait, I want to make sure I don't lose what I've already. So let me save this. Save. And then like the scene with the witch. No, it's not like the scene with the witch. Literally confesses to her badness. Oh, Oh, this is good. Oh, because this makes her even more malicious. She redirects. That's delicious, right? Because that like makes it sound like she really like kind of is calculatedly like, oh, send me to bed without supper. It's like she's putting the halo on her own head purposefully to hide her own little rotten horns. Um, Although Dorothy confesses to her badness, she redirects she redirects her audiences. Now that's great, right? Because audience, that works for both the viewer of the movie as well as her aunt and her uncle and Miss Gulch, all the people that she's talking to in that scene. So audience is a really powerful word there because I get to use it both inside the movie for the aunt, the uncle, and the neighbor, and I also get to use it as outside the movie, the people watching the film. Although Dorothy confesses to her badness, she redirects her audiences, right? She redirects her audience's attention, yes, away. She immediately redirects her audience's attention away from this from it. She immediately redirects her audience's attentions away from it. We need to say badness again. Although Dorothy confesses to her badness, she immediately redirects the audience's attention away from it. That is okay. By the noble act of suggesting she be punished, semicolon, what a good girl. That might be it. That's kind of fun, too. Although Dorothy confesses to her badness, she immediately redirects her audience's attention away from it by the noble act of suggesting she be punished. What a good girl. Yeah, that's awesome. And I mean, because it's so, like, snarky to say what a good girl, because it means, like, I know what's going on. Like, as the author of this paper, I've caught her out in her little game. Yes. But she cannot sustain this facade of this angelic facade. No, it's not really angelic. That's pushing it. This facade of goodness. I'm just going to stick with this goodness badness thing. I'm not loving it, but it really might be what I need to do. But she cannot sustain this facade of goodness. Soon, it takes but a moment for Dorothy's malicious character, for the vitriol of Dorothy's malicious character to for Dorothy to exude the vitriol of her true character. Yes. Oh, I'm going to have to lose this repentance to rage thing. No, I love that too much. It takes but a moment for Dorothy to exude the vitriol of her true character. It takes but a moment for Dorothy to go from repentance to rage as she exudes. Well, that might be put. Let's see what that looks like. Cut. It takes but a moment for Dorothy to go from repentance to rage No, that's the better one. That RR is great. So we ditched the vitriol and the exudes, which is sad because I liked that, but gotta let it go. Oh, what a good girl. But she cannot sustain this facade of goodness. It takes but a moment for Dorothy to go from repentance to rage. As Miss Gulch. Oh, I could keep that. I could put it here. As Miss Gulch prepares to take Toto away, Dorothy, pure comma, Dorothy exudes the vitriol of her true character when she yells, I won't let you, there. I had my cake and I ate it too. Muncha, muncha, muncha. Very happy with that. Although Dorothy confesses to her badness, she immediately redirects the audience's attention away from it by the noble act of suggesting she be punished. What a good girl. But she cannot sustain this facade of goodness. It takes but a moment for Dorothy to go from repentance to rage. As Miss Gulch prepares to take Toto away, Dorothy exudes the vitriol of her true character when she yells, I won't let you take him, you go away, I'll bite you myself, you wicked old witch. Great. Can you all see that that's like just so much better than what I had before? You can replay this video now and look at what I had at the beginning and then cut to the end and see what I have now. And I think we would all agree that this is much better. And you can also understand what a pain it was to work on basically 2 sentences for something like 10 minutes. Yeah, there are no good writers. There are only good editors.